Do you believe the people of the United States are focused on and good at empathy, understanding and sharing the feelings of others? If you believe we're good at this, raise your hand. Hands down. If you believe we're not good at this, raise your hand. So it looks like our society has some work to do when it comes to empathy. A study by PR firm Method Communications found that 2 in 3 Americans say empathy has decreased in the last year. But why are we in an empathy deficit? And how can we fix it? What if I told you an answer to both of these questions is urban planning? I've lived in the 4 corners of the United States, in Los Angeles, New York City, Seattle, and of course, Miami. Growing up, I witnessed firsthand how urban planning trends influenced my way of life in each city I lived in. In New York City, I grew up without a car and learned to take public transportation from an early age. Everything was accessible to me on foot. In Los Angeles, car culture is big, and I needed a ride to get anywhere from a friend's house to the grocery store. But this difference isn't just about convenience. I started to notice a connection between urban planning and the culture of each city I lived in. The way the environment was built out made me feel a certain way and influenced how I engaged with the world. In cities where I could walk, take a bike, or a train anywhere I wanted, I felt powerful and connected. In cities where I needed a car to get everywhere, I felt powerless and alone. It makes sense, right? You're more likely to hang out with a friend if they're an easy walk or bike ride away, rather than a long car ride. And for my whole life up until last year, I wasn't able to drive. So I had these observations in my head, but it wasn't until I took a class in my freshman year of high school called Topics in Urban Planning and Community Design that I started to truly understand the connection between urban planning and culture. So let's get back to the original question. Why are we in an empathy deficit? Picture this. It's the 1950s, and people want to flee the dirty city in favor of moving to the safe suburbs. A new type of urban planning is introduced, suburban sprawl. Do any of these images look familiar to you? In suburban sprawl, every aspect of human life is separated. Home is separated from school, which is separated from work, which is separated from the grocery store, which is separated from the gym. This separation comes at a cost. Connecting between the places we need to go to every day requires roads and cars. And as these cars and roads begin to dominate, the public sphere becomes non-existent. What I mean by that is you're no longer running into an old friend while walking to work. Maybe they're driving past you, but you can't see them. You can't connect with them. You can't engage in the things we humans need to survive. Face-to-face physical interactions where humans can see each other, converse, and connect. And not just socially, but economically. A Harvard study found that commute time is actually a large factor in predicting whether one is likely to escape poverty or not. The longer one's commute time is, the lower their odds are of escaping poverty. And in a place where one must commute by car rather than by foot, bike, or bus, this is going to be even more difficult. We've also lost a lot of what are called third spaces, places outside of work or home that we can go to. A park, the library, a coffee shop. In these third spaces, strangers from all walks of life can coexist. But because of suburban sprawl, third spaces are no longer scattered around a town in an easily discoverable and accessible manner. Rather, they're places we must seek out ourselves, which kind of defeats the purpose of a third space. And if you have to drive 25 minutes to get to your nearest park or library or coffee shop, that's going to shrink the diversity of people coming to these spaces. So now, even if you do make it to your nearest third space, the only people who will be there are those who can drive there. You're not experiencing a real representative slice of your city, but rather a group of people with the time and resources to drive, look for parking, and then enjoy a third space. And there we have the empathy deficit. In suburban sprawl, each individual is isolated. Especially in the wake of COVID-19, we've devised a way for each person to move around the same town in a manner that minimizes interaction with others. This is where empathy really comes in. It's psychologically proven that by merely being exposed to others, we become more understanding and tolerant of them, a concept known as the mere exposure effect. A study by the University of Arkansas found that after visiting a museum on a school trip, students exhibited more historical empathy and tolerance, simply by being exposed to the artifacts and images in the museum. So, when we're not exposed to others outside of our suburban sprawl bubble, we're going to have less understanding, tolerance, and empathy for them. We're going to lose patience for others and stop putting ourselves in their shoes. How many of you have experienced road rage? We've all experienced road rage. That's anti-empathy in action. You're not thinking about the human, you're thinking about the car. What I mean by that is you're not thinking about the emotions and experiences of the person behind the wheel. All you see is a car in your way. So you honk, you scream, you might even do some hand gestures at them. Another example of the mere exposure effect at work is in the book Happy City by Charles Montgomery. The author visits a commuter town known as Mountain House in California. It has all the sprawl features we've learned about: separated uses, lack of third spaces, car dependency. Because of these features, residents had little to no opportunities to connect with their neighbors. So, the author asks a resident of this town a question. If he dropped his wallet in his neighborhood, did he think he would get it back? He replied, no, because he had barely seen his neighbors. The urban planning of his town allowed him no chances to get to know and connect with the people living around him, and thus he perceived them as less trustworthy and empathetic than they may have actually been. What's more, if you grow up in an extremely car-dependent environment like this one, you're confined to the other places people can take you, such as school, sports, friends' houses, maybe the mall. This is going to limit your experience with the mere exposure effect in your formative years. However, the more exposed we are to unknown things, the more open-minded and empathetic we will be. But how can we create a diverse, accessible environment where people are open-minded and empathetic? There are a number of ways. Let's revisit third spaces. Here, in Coconut Grove, Florida, there are over a dozen parks in this small neighborhood. Walking a straight line on South Bayshore Drive alone, there are 3 parks, one of which is across from the building we're in right now. These are places where dwellers of the neighborhood can spontaneously meet, play, and connect. It makes our community stronger because we're reinforcing our social relationships through spontaneous interaction. It's important to be around people you don't know. Remember the mere exposure effect? The more exposed we are to unknown things, the more understanding and tolerant we will be of them. Within walking distance of the park in my childhood neighborhood in New York City, there was a community college, a performing arts center, and a mom and pop deli. These establishments each hosted completely different people from a range of backgrounds. This diversity made the area vibrant, and it was made possible by the lack of car dependency in the city. And it increased mine and other people's exposure to each other. We were constantly being exposed to faces and stories that were different from ours. We have 2 action items to increase an environment's empathy: invest in third spaces and kick car dependency to the curb. Of course, this is easier said than done. Walkable and accessible spaces don't happen overnight. And it sounds like a lot. How can we even begin to change our neighborhoods for the better if they're already built for cars? The truth is, like with everything, simple steps are the solution. Take Fuller Street in our very own Grove, for example. A block that used to have cars running through it at all times is now closed to all car traffic. When the city of Miami was going to reopen it to car traffic, the community came together to advocate to keep Fuller Street car-free. And Fuller Street is thriving. There are block parties packed with dancing and laughing bodies. There's a man who stands at the corner every weekend with a guitar, inviting passerby to sing. None of this would be happening if there were cars barreling through Fuller Street at all hours. Fuller Street is proof that small changes have big impacts that echo into our future. Space is power. The way we build out our environment influences how we feel and how we treat each other. To me, urban planning must be based in empathy before everything else. Every choice a city planner makes must be made with the best interests of humans at heart. And even if we're not city planners, we have the power to make our environments more empathetic. We can ask ourselves, how does this space make me feel? And then we can get creative. How can I make this space better? Because when we design for connection rather than isolation, we're connecting people in more than just a physical manner. We are shaping our environment in a way that encourages us to put ourselves in other people's shoes. Empathy is more than just a feeling. It's a catalyst. Reach out, speak up. Together, through our collective action, we have the power not only to change our own minds, but to change the world. Thank you.